Yes. Yeah, I'm coming down to this particular thing, telling that now I am going ahead. I have an internet application. I want to change it to an intranet application out here. What do I do? Anything that you can think of? Anything that anyone can think about here? Load balancer. Okay. Again, when I say load balancer can only take virtual machines as a background, as a backend. This is an app service, so load balancer might not be able to handle this out here as such. Yes. Anyone? Anything else?
We have to give
I
some
want to.
specified IPs.
We'll use some specified IPs. Okay, where do I use that? When you say specified IPs, yes, you're right. But where can I use that specified IPs? Where should I specify it out?
In web app
Inbound.
network. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Inbound. Exactly. Yesterday we were talking about outbound calls. Securing all our outbound calls is yesterday something that we're talking about. Today I'm thinking to secure my inbound calls, telling who can access this particular web application. So what I'll do is, as of now, this particular web application is accessible by everyone. Reason being, a PaaS service in Azure is a publicly exposed service, just like a storage account. So if you take this URL, which is demo webappxyz.azurewebsites.net, and if I just go to a PowerShell, okay, I just go to PowerShell or just go to any kind of, let's say, tool out here and run a small command here telling resolve hyphen DNS name, say hyphen name, and put this name out here and say enter. I get a public IP address 20.119.136.5 out here, which is a public IP address. And this is the public IP of the backend running virtual machine, which is hosting my web app. Web app is nothing but a virtual machine out here in the background. And this is the public IP of the virtual machine that you have. Again, if you go to the Azure portal into the web app and just scroll down into something called as custom domains, just search for something called custom domains out here, which is here 20.119.136.5. Same thing what you're able to get here. This is one of the way to do it. Or if you want to be more precise, just go to Google, say MX Toolbox. This is one of the tools that we use a lot to understand what the IP and all the DNS and all that stuff. Just go here, place your domain name, say MX lookup. Same thing what your, let's say, PowerShell will do. It'll go ahead and understand that particular, let's say, IP address and all that stuff. And once you do the MX lookup out here, let me just close out these things out. And it will tell you that this demo XYZ something is pointing out to www dot something like that dot azure websites dot net. I click on this one, and now it's telling me that this website, which is azure websites dot net, is pointing out to something dot eastus dot cloudapp dot azure dot com. Did you hear this somewhere? Cloudapp dot azure dot com. Anywhere did we deal with this one? Where did we deal with this one? Cloudapp dot azure dot com out here. Did we deal with this anywhere? Anytime? Do you all remember where we dealt with this one? Did we deal with this? Yes. Where did we deal with this one?
While
Where did we
creating
deal with
web application.
while creating web application? Okay, when I create a web application, where exactly do you see that? Dot, something called as dot ecsdo dot cloudapp dot azure dot com. Where exactly do we see that?
Host, near host.
Near host. Okay, I am at a web service out here. This is a web service. Uh, or else I'll just go and create a web application. I'll say create. Where do you see that? Sorry? IP domain. When you say IP domain, are you talking about IP address? IP address that is attached to a virtual machine? There's something called DNS name for the IP address. when you create a DNS name for the IP address, isn't this the extension that you get called ecs2.cloudapp.azure.com, which means that Microsoft in the backend has created a virtual machine for you, attached a DNS name for that, and that DNS name is also called by something called as something.azurewebsites.net. It's doing a mapping out here. If I click on this one, then I will be able to go ahead and get this particular IP address called 2119.136.5, which is let's say owned by someone called as what? Microsoft Corporation, which is the administrator, meaning Microsoft, even in here, if you look at this one, authority, it is Microsoft.com. This is what it is, telling that it is Microsoft.com and all that stuff. So Microsoft has gone ahead, created all this for you and kept it readily available for you out here as such, wherein it's telling that, okay, fine, this is your authority and all these things out. And Microsoft is the owner of this particular public IP. I'm not controlling this public IP. I don't get this, let's say, option to go ahead and control this public IP. When you create a PaaS service, this public IP is by default given to your particular web application. So what I do, I go into my web application. I'll just scroll down into something known as networking. There's something called networking out here. And under networking, there is something called inbound traffic. There is something called what? Access restriction. Restrict the access. And I'll click on this one. By default, if you see the access restriction, do you see what? Allow everyone. Don't deny anything. Allow everything out here. I'll say, okay, fine. You know what? Let's add a rule. I'll say a rule. I'll say the rule name is, let's say, IP rule out here. Say IP rule 1. I'll say allow. I'll give a priority called 1 out here. I'll say allow my IP address. I'll just check what is my IP. My IP is 183.83.38 or something like this. I'll just copy this out. I'm telling the type here is IPv4. The type can be IPv4 v6 virtual network. You can also add a virtual network. I'll just put this in, telling that this is the IP address that will have access to this particular web application, and I'll add a rule out here. If I do this automatically, let's see what happens to the rule set out here. Do you see what is happening right now? There are two rules that got added. One thing is telling what? Priority 1, IP rule 1. The source is what? 182 or something like this /32 single IP address out here. Action is what? Allow. As and when I did an allow, what did Azure do? Rest all, meaning whatever apart from this one, they should not have access to this one. So if I just go here into the browser, just refresh this browser, I'm able to see this. Let's do one thing. Either you can use your mobile phones, or I can just place this out in. Paste this out in on the browser. Just click on that. Let me know what are you able to see when you click on this one. Either you can use your mobile devices or you can use this one. Anything is okay. If you go here, hit this one telling demo web app 000.azurewebsites.net out here.
Error
I'm sorry.
403.
403 error. 403 error out here. Let's do one thing. I'll just go here, change my rule. I won't give my IP address. I'll give some random IP. And I'll say update the rule out here. So this is some random IP, not my IP, which means I'm not allowed to, let's say, go ahead and interact with this particular web application. If I'm not allowed to, let's refresh the screen again. For the rule to come into place, it will take some time out here. Let me go here and let's say refresh. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me take an incognito window out here. Again, this is my browser cache that's behaving right now. In a minute or so, if I refresh this out, I should get the same error, but my browser cache is so strong that it is, let's say, caching all these things out. In the incognito window, there is no history. So I'm just going here in an incognito window out here, and now 403 access forbidden, meaning only this particular IP address will have the access or should have the access. Also, what I can do is just like coming to, let's say, like a storage account. I'll say this is a VNet rule. I'll say allow, I'll say priority one out here, just scroll down. Instead of IPv4, I can say it's a virtual network. I can say this is a default virtual network. I'll say add a rule out here. Now I am allowing not only individual IPs, because if I allow individual IPs, there are a lot of people in my organization out here, right? I am also going ahead and allowing something called as a VNet out here, which means that all the traffic that is coming from this VNet can access this particular web application. So I have a VNet and there is a subnet inside this particular VNet, and using the access restrictions, I went ahead and I'm now telling that this VNet has the access. So now if you are an employee of this particular company and if you want to access your internal websites, the first thing you do is to connect to a VPN. If you connect to a VPN, you're establishing a direct connection with this particular virtual network, and then you'll be able to access this particular site out here. I'm linking the concept of VPN that we did even to a web application out here. This is how you can take a web application that is by default publicly accessed website and convert it into a private website out here. Is any questions still here? And this is something that everyone will be able to see. Like, if you go to this particular page, if your web application has an access restriction out here, it will throw an error telling that this is forbidden and all that stuff out here as such.
Hi, Kiran.
Yes, any just go ahead, please.
Uh, uh, can we add a multiple IPs in one one
Yes, you
inbound
can
rule?
add. Yes, you can add multiple IPs in one inbound rule. Good question. You can add a block of IP. Yes, you can say it is a block of IP address. So, for example, if you want to add multiple IPs, I can say 183.83.38.0/16. It's a block of IP address that you'll add. So /16 here means that every IP address starting with 183.183.83.38.0 to 255, 0 to 255, everything will have access to this particular, let's say, address block out here. Or you can also give a comma separated value. You can give a comma separated value of a list of blocks out here. Even that works. So either a CIDR address block or a comma separated value, both will work in order to, let's say, go ahead and give you the access out here as such. And answering to one question, Kiran, I need a private IP. Can you guide has which step need to view it? Okay, when you say private IP, Santosh, I'm not too sure which private IP that you're talking about. So if you can elaborate on that a little bit, I'll be able to help you with the same thing out there.
No, Kiran, we have public and private IP, right? When private means inside premises, public is outside.
Mhm.
I need a private IP. We have both the IPs when we have the virtual. Here, any possibility for the private IP?
Uh, no, here you won't get a private IP. You only will get a public IP out here. Reason being, the networking is managed by Azure. It's a PaaS service, so the networking is completely managed by Azure out here. But if you need a private IP, then you can change your plan. So we saw dev test, we saw production. There's something called isolated out here, which will give you something called app service environment, which will give you your own private IPs out here. So if you go to app service environment, again, I do not have the plan right now. I'll have to create it, and it's a very big plan. Like, if we start creating this out, it'll take a lot of time out here to create this out. But yes, if you go into something called isolation, then you will get a private IP instead of a public IP out here as such. So for a virtual machine, you can go for a combination of both public IP or a private IP. For an Azure web app, you will either get a public IP or a private IP out here, one of those. Or if you want to make it private, then you can use, let's say, access restrictions and a lot of things, and let's say forbid your access to only a limited number of IPs or a limited number of virtual networks out here as such.
Thank you.
And to answer to one of the other questions that I sparked out is that 2nd September, can we complete the entire course? Second week, not really. Third week, yes. Second week is this one. Third week is this one. Yes. Third week is yes. This is somewhere that I'll be covering the course out here. So starting from DevOps, which is on 22nd, I will need around 30 to 35 classes to complete this out. DevOps itself will take around 20 classes out here. After that, we have, let's say, other things like Terraforms, let's say Dockers, Kubernetes, and all these things out. So together, I'm talking about 30, 35 classes, around 30 to 35 to cover this out here. So again, from 22nd, we'll try to plan out a few Saturdays. We'll try to, let's say, take classes on a few Saturdays out here, so that on Saturdays I can, let's say, go for mocks and all that stuff. I can do mock interviews and all these things out here, and I can take more questions out there and etc. Because going into DevOps, I face a lot of challenges in answering the questions out here, because there will be a lot of questions that will come up when you go into DevOps. So that requires special attention. So we'll take out Saturdays and all these things to go ahead with question and answer sessions and all these things out here. Yes, any more questions, guys? And I still need to fix this particular error on why this is happening, all that stuff. Yes, anyone, any more questions out here? All right, so I will have to still do the demo for App Insights. So I'll take that demo, but I'll firstly have to, let's say, look at that particular issue that I'm getting with my system. It looks really weird, so I'll have to check that out with what is the issue with my system, fix it out, and then take that particular session. So I'll do that session. But yes, any more questions out here? Any more questions that I can take?
Kiran, can I have the document for this particular? We have doing configurations on the public IP, right? In the particular, can you have it on this particular document, Microsoft document?
Yes, you can do access restrictions for
Okay.
Web Azure, and
Okay.
here you have all these things out. So I can share this documentation out for you. You have scenarios, advanced scenarios, where you can go ahead and, let's say, do all these things out here as such.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is any more questions here, guys? Anyone, any more questions here? Okay, thank you and have a good day. Meet tomorrow. We'll discuss more on this one. And before coming to tomorrow's session, guys, please look at what is Traffic Manager Azure. Just do Traffic Manager Azure out here. Just understand what is Traffic Manager out here. And tomorrow's session will focus on Traffic Manager. And we'll be left with one more session out here for application insights, which I'll cover it out once I fix my system out here. Okay. So just do what is traffic managers, just understand this out, and we'll do traffic managers elaborately tomorrow to understand what traffic management and all these things out here is. Thank you and have a good day ahead. Thank you.